I was 28 years old, solo camping in a local woodland with my beagle Reggie, only realizing I wasn't as solo as I thought. It was November. The weather was still mildly warm during the day, but at night it would get cold, so I came prepared. I brought my portable fire pit, lighter fluid, a lighter, and an axe for chopping wood. I also of course brought a tent, a sleeping bag, and my fishing gear so that I could fish at the lake. I brought enough food to last the 2 days we'd be there, but if I caught some fish, I would plan to eat it. I hiked from my truck about a mile into the forest until I was near enough to the lake. I set up my campsite in a comfortable little opening, and I brought Reggie along with me to the lake to go fishing. I caught a couple smaller fish that weren't really worth trying to cook, so I threw them back in. Reggie kept looking into the forest at something, and his tail would stop wagging as if he locked onto something. It could have been any number of little animals that he heard or saw. He's well trained not to go running off though, so I don't keep him on a leash. After maybe an hour of fishing, we went for a hike around the lake. When we were directly across the lake from our campsite, I looked over to the other side, and I saw what looked like a couple of people walking into the woods. They were so far away it was hard to tell, but they really did look like people, and they were right around where the campsite was. I didn't want to get robbed, so I told Reggie come on, and we made a quick pace back around the lake. When we got back to the campsite, my tent zipper was open. Someone had gone through it, no doubt. Surprisingly, nothing appeared to be missing though. Not that there was really much to steal beyond the fire pit and fishing supplies. Still, I knew I was right when I thought I saw people, and the fact that they had gone through my campsite gave me the creeps. To be safe, I spent the next hour or so moving my campsite to a different spot a little further up the lake. Then I started chopping some wood to get a fire going in the fire pit. Once that was going, I fed Reggie, and then heated up some chili for dinner. Then we sat by the fire, and I was writing in my journal when Reggie started barking at something in the forest. It was dark now, and I didn't really see anything beyond what the fire lit up. I looked out into the darkness, a little creeped out. On that note, I brought Reggie inside of the tent and went to put out the fire. If there were people out in these woods, I didn't really want to be advertising my location with the fire. I climbed into the sleeping bag, and with my reading light next to me, I was reading my novel. Reggie's ears would repeatedly move as he was hearing things that I wasn't hearing. He kept looking around at the tent walls. I kept saying, "What is it, boy?" He started to growl. He heard something out there. It could have maybe been a deer, it could have maybe been a bear, or it could have been a person. I found the idea of a person being out there still, in the dark, to be more terrifying than a bear. Eventually Reggie calmed down and put his head down. With that, I was uncomfortable and wanted the night to pass, so I turned off my lantern and went to sleep. I woke up hours later to Reggie growling and howling. I told him to be quiet. I listened, and I could hear someone whistling, the kind of whistling you do to a dog to get their attention. Reggie started growling again in response to it. Someone was actually out there at my campsite in the pitch black darkness, and I was scared shitless. The whistling turned to a clicking noise from someone's mouth. Then footsteps started getting closer to the tent until they were right outside the tent, and then they stopped. Reggie was going ballistic howling, and I grabbed him and got him to be quiet without saying anything. Without the crackling of the fire, there was total silence apart from the wind. Reggie started growling again, looking in the direction of the zipper of the tent. Silence, until finally, another whistle from right outside the tent door. Reggie went ballistic again. I tried to fake a really deep, commanding voice and yelled, "You better get out of here, I have a gun," but my voice just came out shaky and scared sounding. The footsteps walked away from the tent at a slow, heavy pace until they faded away completely. That, or they simply stopped in their tracks not far from the tent, because Reggie kept growling on and off for like an hour after that. I couldn't sleep after that, but I was too terrified to leave the tent and pack up everything in the dark. My phone had no service in the middle of the forest, so it's not like I could even call a family member or a friend to tell them about what's going on. And then, out in the distance, there was a woman's scream that probably echoed for miles. It sounded like a woman literally screaming for her life. This was the final straw. I grabbed Reggie, put on my boots, grabbed my flashlight, and ran. I ran the way I came all the way until I got to my truck. I still had no cell reception. I slept in my truck that night, and at dawn I went back into the woods with Reggie back to the campsite. I collected all my things and disassembled my tent. I didn't even pay attention to if my things were gone through again. I was just in a rush to get out of there. Half an hour later, I had the truck loaded up and I was out of there. As soon as I had reception, I called this non-emergency police number that I found online to report a woman's scream and suspicious people around my campsite the night before. I don't know what became of any of that, and I don't know what was going on in those woods, but I never returned to go camping there again.